Good evening, everyone.
Gwen, this
Charles.
is Charles. I'm on.
Yeah, I saw. Thank you. Sorry.
Good evening. Want to welcome everyone to the June 24th, 2024 Raleigh Housing Authority meeting. I'd like to go ahead and call roll.
Eric Braun.
Here.
Valerie Crutchfield. Here. Susan Ellinger.
Here.
Nia Bonneville Swint is not on. Arnie Morris is not on. Bahati Matisia. Greg Warren.
Here.
Joe Whitehouse is not on, and Yolanda Winstead.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Next item of business is recognition of visitors. Do we have any visitors in attendance?
We have some developers in attendance.
And that they're here for
They're
the
here for the bond deal.
okay, well, we'll let them introduce themselves at the appropriate time.
All right.
And if we don't have anyone, what I'll ask out of an abundance of caution, our next item of business is traditionally to allow the public to have 3 minutes of comments if they would like. Is there anybody on the call that would like to share any public comments? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item, a report of the board secretary.
And I will not do the report.
All right, so then we're off. This meeting's going quick. We're down to new business, resolution number 41.
And I will be presenting that.
All right, thank
So,
you.
this resolution is an inducement resolution for up to $36 million in multifamily housing revenue bonds for Garner Apartments. Per state statute, RHA is the issuer of these bonds. They are non-recourse bonds, so if the developer were to default on these bonds, RHA is not financially responsible. Garner Apartments is a 224 unit family property located at 1420 Garner Road. The developer is Reuter Walton Development LLC company out of Minnesota. This property will be their first bond deal in Raleigh. The property includes 64 one-bedroom units, 92 two-bedroom units, and 68 three-bedroom units, all at 60% of area median income. The net rents will range from $1,311 to $1,803. The property is also required to accept housing choice vouchers due to a requirement of the 4% tax credit program. The total project is approximately $70 million, including funding from bonds, permanent financing, 4% tax credits, and deferred developer fee. Amenities will include a community room, exercise room, playground, and covered and surface parking. The developer is willing to include a preference in their tenant selection plan for RHA residents displaced due to redevelopment. This has been reviewed by RHA's legal counsel with no exceptions, and I would recommend approval. Jared Ackman and Paul Keenan with Reuter Walton is on the call if there are any questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
This is Greg Warren.
Go ahead, Greg.
Hi, I'm curious why, I'm gathered that y'all have not submitted for tax credits or bond volume cap from the Housing Finance Agency, is that right?
We have not for this project, no. We have on a project in Clayton in this last round.
Yeah. And have you submitted any requests for the city for city financing, or will you require any?
We will not require any. We have not submitted any.
Okay. It strikes me that you may be submitting this application fairly early in your process. I don't think that the inducement resolution is required for some time, even if you submit in January for bond volume cap. And I was particularly struck by the lack of information about your design and layout, the fit that you have, the fit test that you showed us in your application showed us a sea of parking surrounded by 3 very long buildings. And it strikes me that I would not like to, I don't think I'm in support of this project right now, given its state. And I don't think even if the fit test is not exactly what you'd be looking at doing on Garner Road, I think that we as an organization ought to have more detail about what you're proposing in terms of such that we make sure that it's going to be an asset to the community.
Would the applicant like to respond to that?
Yeah, we do have, you're generally correct that we've got 3 different buildings on the site. The reason primarily for that is we're working with pretty significant slope change from north to south. And we're needed to kind of break up the buildings for that reason, and to also allow for areas to get utilities into the site. We had originally thought about proposing one single building, but that was proven to be too difficult with the grade change and getting utilities into the site.
Are there other questions of the board?
I don't know, this might not be the appropriate time since this is the pro forma and everything's pretty preliminary, but there were a couple things in the underwriting that I had some questions about.
Sure.
It looked to me like your operating expenses were much higher than is allowed under the QAP. I think 3,800 under the 2024 QAP without reserves and supportive services is the max, and I think you were at like almost 4,800. So I was just curious how you were going to deal with that. I don't believe it didn't appear that your replacement reserves were escalating at 4% as required under the QAP. And then I noticed you have 224 units, but I believe you would have to get approval before you submit your application from the agency to do more than 200. So I don't know if you had looked at those issues already, or if that's something you're going to tweak as the time goes on.
Yeah, we have, so we have gotten approval from the agency on going over 200 units. We do have some buffer. I mean, we will definitely drill down on our expenses. We're experiencing quite a bit of increase in expenses in terms of like property insurance and some other areas in our portfolio. So we've been underwriting a bit higher. But certainly if we can reduce expenses, that's better for the project and for the underwriting. And on the escalation, you may be right. We typically escalate our expenses at 3%. So I'd have to double check to see if that should be at 4%, but I take your word for that.
Yeah, that was the extent of my questions. I think Greg addressed the design question.
So are any of these things something that could be addressed with some additional time? You know, or does the applicant want to up or down vote tonight? And again, I'm not a finance person, some of this, I'm not a subject matter expert, so if Yolanda and Greg have any input on whether my questions make any sense or not, please feel free. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
I mean, from an underwriting perspective, I mean, it's really up to the developer to make their deal work. So, I mean, if we were to issue, approve the resolution, if they can't make it, if it's not a financially feasible transaction, then that's kind of on the developer to figure that all out and move forward or not. So from that perspective, and numbers change all the time throughout the process. So, we're used to having to find other sources and do that dance here at DHIC. So I don't think my questions give me enough pause not to move forward, but it's up to the applicant if they want to take more time.
Okay, Greg, do you have anything else you want to add other than your questions?
No, I'd welcome a more thoughtful design.
Well, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and call the question, unless there are, do any other board members have questions? Doesn't sound like it. So I'll call the question and entertain a motion to approve or deny resolution number 41.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is Charles Francis. I mean, you could do that, or it could be deferred if you want to give them, an opportunity to respond to those concerns that have been raised. I think you've got that third choice too.
Well, I'll leave that in the applicant's hands. Would you like to come back in a couple months with some more fleshed out ideas, or would you prefer that we take action tonight?
I think we prefer that you take action tonight. We still have, we still need to go through the city entitlement process, and there'll be a lot of time for review and change there. We are under somewhat of a tighter timeline with our seller and have certain obligations under our purchase agreement to make progress in the financing. So with that consideration, we would prefer to move forward tonight.
Okay, well, with that, I'll make a motion that we move approval of resolution number 41. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Can you call roll, Gwen?
Okay, Eric Ron,
Yes.
Valerie Crutchfield,
Yes.
Susan Ellinger,
Yes.
Greg Warren,
No,
Yolanda Winstead.
Yes.
Right, resolution number 41 has been adopted.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate everybody's time. With that, I believe we retain a quorum, so I'm gonna move that we go into an executive session or.
When you're gonna,
Oh, yeah, we got it.
take Valerie,
Yes, I think Valerie was not wanting to stay for the whole
So she needs to
executive
be
session.
excused from
So-
the meeting.
We don't have a quorum, if that's what you've decided, Valerie. Yeah, you still, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then Ms. Crutchfield will excuse you from the meeting. And with that, it breaks our quorum, so we're not able to conduct any further formal business. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
I'll
Second.
second it. Any opposition? Hearing none. If you want to hang on, we do have a discussion matter that we're not taking any formal action on, but it's to get up to speed on a matter. So for those that might want to stay on to hear that, feel free. No obligation. If you need to do other things today, that's fine too.
But just a matter of course, I notice we have a lot of staff on right now. What's your intention? Ashley?
Hey, hold on. Are we done with the recording?
Yeah.
The meeting's been adjourned.
Sorry.